This is GARIS Masculist MGTOW flyers, that is 2 3-page essays on the themes of masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. This is flyer number 356, entitled The Masculist Inquisition. Description. This flyer anticipates that masculism will turn the tide on the fluffies and fluffy feminists, creating an era in which masculism is the dominant gender political ideology, resulting in the creation of a political governmental institution called the Masculist Inquisition, which, similar to the Spanish Inquisition, extirpates gender political heretics in the form of the hated fluffy parasites and the fluffy feminist hypocrites, by punishing them socially, psychologically and financially. In the case of extreme zealotry, that is the feminazi witches, they will be burned. The flyer itself. The Masculist Inquisition by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. I have the feeling that the above term, of all those that I have coined over the years, may prove to be the one that lingers longest in future history. It is so menacing, so evocative, so easily remembered, and I hope it will have its desired effect, that is, will put fear into the hearts of women if they don't conform to the new gender political orthodoxy that will be imposed on the planet by the masculists, who will create such a climate of anti-fluffydom and place such powerful moral pressure on women to fip up and not expect to be able to parasite or some gullible manslave, that any woman in the near future, once this masculist norm, if not this quasi-religion, is established, will become subject to the Masculist Inquisition. I need to explain what this term means in practice, but before I do, I need to lead up to its establishment. How could such an institution and social norm become so powerful that those women who do not conform to the masculist gender political orthodoxy will be prosecuted, having the quality of their lives destroyed by being heavily psychologically punished, by being socially outcast, ostracized, pariahed, and even worse, by being punished by governments with new masculist legislation, whose details will be discussed later in this flyer. The need for a creation of a masculist institution, that's capital M and capital I, results from a chain of logic which goes as follows, a lot of which should be fairly familiar to many readers already. 1. Men liberated women, in brackets, from household drudgery, by giving women the contraceptive pill, household gadgets, higher education, modern medicine, female life expectancies well into the 80s, so even those women who have their 2 kids, in brackets, to contribute to the population not dying out, still have a half-century of career window. 2. Given this half-century career window, the masculists put strong moral pressure on women to fip up. That is, now that women can work, they must work. Because anything else is parasitism of the labour and money of men. That is, man's slavery. 3. Man's slavery is slavery. Slavery rouses passions. Slavery is a war issue. Look at the US Civil War, whose root cause was slavery. The masculists are at war against the fluffies and plan to wipe them out by totally ignoring them. 4. The principal means of wiping out fluffies and fluffy feminist hypocrites, I'm predicting, will be the Masculist Inquisition, an institution that the masculists will set up to systematically, legally implement their masculist policies on society, forcing women to fip up or face the punishment of the MI, Masculist Inquisition. The above reasoning established the need for a Masculist Inquisition, but how will this Masculist Inquisition be set up in practice? How will it come into being? I foresee the following timeline, that is, the following set of developments. A. Masculist ideas continue to spread throughout the advanced democratic world, especially by the internet, and especially in those countries where the fluffy feminist hypocrites are the strongest, where 1 in 4 fathers are being systematically financially crucified and having their lives destroyed. B. Women will notice a change of tone in men, a shift in the way men look at women and behave towards women. Men will start seeing women more ominously, with greater suspicion, exerting greater moral pressure against women, looking for signs of women expecting to behave as fluffies towards men, in which case those men who have been, quote, infected with the masculist virus, the new social virus, capable of moving the minds of millions and later billions of men, will then become hostile towards such women, punishing them, spitting at them, treating them like feminazi witches, to be hated by men, excluded by men for being manslavers, for being slavers, for being morally inferior, to be punished by men, to be sent to the Masculist Inquisition, to be tried, to be condemned, to be cast out. C. Young women will increasingly panic as they notice that quality men, in brackets, who are the first to be influenced by masculist/MGTOW ideas due to their superior intelligence and ability to catch on to new ideas more quickly than average minds, close brackets, refuse to give these young women their sperm, because these quality men refuse to accept being financially massacred in the hated fluffy feminist-dominated divorce courts, which sees divorcing husbands merely as cash machines to be abused and robbed to benefit fluffy ex-wives. These quality men will consider increasingly that a 1 chance in 4 of losing his kids, his house, half his stuff, forced to pay alimony for life to a fluffy parasite, etc., is simply unacceptable, in capital letters, and will reject it, then increasingly hate it, and want this fluffy feminist-dominated divorce court system wiped out by creating a men-fair system instead, that treats men as human beings and not as manslaves who, quote, exist on this earth to pay for women to have babies. Which is an attitude that is deeply held by most women, an attitude that the Masculist Inquisition considers heresy and aims to wipe out. D. The journalists pick up on this panic of young babyless women and start to pay attention to what the masculists have to say. E. The masculists tell the journalists that the masculists have the power to wipe out whole populations if the gender laws are not made men fair by reforming the divorce courts, bringing in the paternity rejection right, the fipping of women in the high schools by creating a masculist group in every high school, every campus, so that young women are powerfully morally pressured to fip up, in brackets, become FIPs, equals financially independent persons, who bother to get a career competent education, so that as adults they do not expect to parasite off the money of a man. That is, they become emo FIPs, that's equal moral obligations FIPs. That is, feeling that as women they have a powerful moral obligation to fip up, to pull her financial weight and not have some manslave work for her. F. Of course, most women would love to have a manslave and dream of it, but the whole point of the Masculist Inquisition is to extirpate that expectation, to force society to see it as heresy that the masculist high priests aim to wipe out, to punish women who have such beliefs, and in the most offensive of cases, that is, the dyed-in-the-wool feminazi witches, to be burned alive, like Bruno, whose ideas were so threatening, so heretical to the Roman Catholic Church. G. Once the masculist movement has the ear of the media, it will preach to women that if women want to have babies again, they must vote with men, to men-fair the gender laws, so that men are prepared to be fathers again. If not, then millions of women will go babyless, which will make them very unhappy and make them go crazy. This process is already well underway. Surveys show that women are increasingly unhappy because they feel they have made bad choices in their life paths by not having children and now deeply regret it. H. The gender laws are men-faired, and the feminists lose their monopoly on gender politics. In fact, since masculism is based more on science than is feminism, which preaches to women ideas that women desperately want to hear, for example,
women are men's equals. Women are equally capable as men. Men are toxic. Men exploit women,
etc. Whereas masculism is more science-based. For example, presenting the scientific evidence that women are dumber on average than men, have 10% smaller brains, have won a pathetic 1% of science Nobel Prizes, etc. Then masculism will come to dominate the gender political stage, teaching society that so many feminist ideas are not scientifically valid, hence are fairy stories to be rejected. The gender political pendulum will then swing not only back to its lowest point, but further into the era of masculist dominance, so that masculist ideas and values become a form of new religion, with religious overtones, putting powerful moral pressure on women to conform to the new social ethic of being an emo-fip, or risk being socially shunned and legally punished by the Masculist Inquisition. End of part 1.